Who owns individual growth and development? Is it your manager or you? In this episode, hear how you can shape your own success and how leaders can foster meaningful progress among team members.
Hey there, I'm Krista Vance, entrepreneur and operations leader.
And I'm Matt Vance, award-winning author and social innovation researcher. We're your hosts of the Culture Profit Podcast.
Your place for purposeful company culture strategy.
Learn from HR pros, executives, and thought leaders how to prioritize profits by prioritizing people.
This episode is sponsored by Mobrium, the best friend of forward-thinking HR leaders, helping you strengthen your employer reputation as a reflection of your real culture.
Learn more at mobrium.com. Today, Krista and I aren't in Kansas anymore, but our special guest is. We're excited to welcome Mark Mears, calling in from Kansas City, home of the Chiefs, and recently graced by Taylor Swift, who was watching the Chiefs versus Bronco game at KC Arrowhead Stadium. So just wanted to make that plug for all of you Swifties listening out there. We'd like to give a warm welcome to Mark Mears. Thanks for joining us today.
Matt, Krista, it's great to be with you. And yes, it's true. There's no place like home.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to talk a little bit more about Mark. He is a #1 best-selling author, keynote speaker, consultant, and visionary business leader. He has a significant track record of building stakeholder value, driving innovation and profitable growth among world-class, high-profile brands such as PepsiCo, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Frito-Lay, JCPenney, NBCUniversal, and the Cheesecake Factory. Wow. Today, Mark serves as founder and chief growth officer for Leaf Growth Ventures, LLC, a consulting firm inspiring individuals, teams, and organizations to find purpose in fulfilling their true growth potential while making a positive, lasting difference in the world. Mark just released his new book titled The Purposeful Growth Revolution: 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. And then Mark is also a member of the Senior Leader Network within Conscious Capitalism, Inc., a global organization whose mission he shares, which is elevating humanity through business. Very cool. And so we have a lot to talk about. And first, want to start with your book. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
Yeah, thank you, Krista and Matt. The book is called The Purposeful Growth Revolution: 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. And I'm happy to report, as you mentioned, it's a best-selling book and a huge thrill. I never thought I was going to write a book, and I'm not looking at myself as some sort of writer or author, but it was an epiphany that hit me literally a little over 10 years ago now. And it's all in the book, so I won't take your listeners through it, but just to say that it led me to this idea that LEAF is a symbol of growth and rebirth. And not only that, it's an acronym that stands for leadership, engagement, accountability, and fulfillment. So if you think about that as 4-circle Venn diagram, all revolving around purposeful growth. The epiphany hit me when I went in the backyard after a fitful night of sleep, after a significant life event. And the next morning when I woke up, took the dog out, there was a big tree in our backyard that was barren from the 5 or 6 weeks of winter we get in Southern California when we were living there at the time. And there on the end of one branch was this tiny little green sprig of a leaf just starting to bud. And it was there I got this epiphany that a leaf is not only a symbol of growth and rebirth, but also this acronym that is really something that had guided me. I believed in and led with what's called the rule of 3s. If you focus on 3 things, people can't remember 4 or 5 or whatever, you'll be more productive and ultimately hit your goals. And my 3 things were leadership, engagement, and accountability. But it wasn't until that significant life event when I got let go from a president's position for a $500 million casual dining chain and told by the new owner, we'll take it from here, that I got the idea that all that work that we were doing to turn this brand around and put in a new contemporary brand positioning and put a new concept that earn the right to capital from our parent company, who was publicly traded, only to have them sell us. And so what was missing was the F, fulfillment. So everyone knew my mantra was leadership, engagement, accountability. I'd say Krista is leading her team, and look at these results. Matt's engaging his team on a more deeper emotional level, and look what they're doing. Krista is holding her team accountable, and look what their sales are doing. But I realized that we were burning the candle at both ends. We were chasing numbers just to chase numbers. And then when we thought we had this career-defining turnaround happen, it got taken from us. Not just myself, the whole management team. And they ended up moving the office from Orange County to Dallas, their U.S. headquarters, in 6 months. Everything they said they wouldn't do, they did. That's not very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So then I got this idea of a 4-circle Venn diagram. And I think, wow, I don't believe in the rule of threes anymore. I believe in the higher power of fours. And so everything in the book is around four ways to grow from leader to legacy builder. Those 4 circles intertwine, revolving around purposeful growth. That fig tree in my backyard only knows how to be a fig tree. Its purpose is to grow fig leaf, where all growth happens in a tree or a plant through the magic of photosynthesis, right? But then ultimately, not only to help that fig tree grow big and strong, but to bear fig fruit. And that's the result of that, the accountability, the achievement of that fig tree. Because not only do those figs represent sustenance for people or animals, but inside are seeds that support future growth when they're scattered at their appropriate time. And so this whole book is around revolution is actually a 3-definition word. You think about revolution, it's an uprising of the people. It's a dramatic change in the status quo. It's one object encircling and orbiting around another. And that's really what this whole idea is getting you to think about what can we learn from nature that will help us personally and professionally grow up into our full potential, much like that fig tree.
And I love the fulfillment piece of that, because if a fig tree is not getting to that point where they're able to produce the fig fruit,
Right.
they're not having that fulfillment. And we all need that point. And I feel like I see some really good messages that you can get from this, but one being that, what you are good at, you want to use those skills and you want to reach your own fulfillment and potential within
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so if you think about leadership as representing the seed and the root system, right? You have to have a strong root system or the plant will wither and die, right? Much like in a company, right? You have to have strong leadership or the company will wither and die. And once you do that, it's great, but then you just have a stump. So you need engagement, which represents the trunk and the branches and the system of nourishment, which I've learned is called savia, which in Spanish translates to English as lifeblood. What's the lifeblood of any organization? It's people. So the people need to be engaged with their heart, their head, their hands, their habits. That leads to empowerment. So if leadership leads to alignment, engagement leads to empowerment, accountability leads to achievement. What's the accountability of that fig tree? Again, it's to grow fig leaves and fig fruit. In an organization, it's your results. It's achieving your shared objectives as a team or as an organization. And then finally, the fulfillment is that nurturing environment, which allows that growth to happen. To your point, Krista, it's the soil, the sun, the rain that allows photosynthesis to do what it does to help that fig tree or the individual or team or organization grow into their full potential.
I love that. And honestly, it's making me think of some things that I'd learned previously. Honestly, while I was writing my book and looking at different ways to structure how to teach a principle, there's this idea of growth being a rate of change. And if you look at an individual, you look at a company, you look at a team, you look at a department, there could be competition that may be growing at a faster rate, which means we're actually falling behind, even if we are making incremental progress. So I think it is important to give purposeful attention to our growth as individuals, as teams, as departments, and as organizations. And we haven't talked a ton about this principle in the history of the podcast, which I'm really excited for you to share some of this, Mark. So I'm curious, you talked about your 4 things: leadership, engagement, accountability, fulfillment, and then you had those correlating elements of growth in there. Can you just give us a quick recap of how you define personal growth?
Yeah, and I don't look at it as just personal, although I look at that 4-circle Venn diagram. Picture that in your mind's eye. I think we're whole people, and I think we're designed to grow into our full potential based on our service. So if you think about who we serve, there are 4 realms of service. There's personal, ourself, right? It's like the flight attendant saying, if there's a sudden drop in cabin pressure, you got to put your mask on first before you can help someone else. If we don't take care of ourselves, the other 3 realms of service don't matter, right? And that means mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. We've got to take care of ourselves. And then relationally, who do we love and who loves us, right? Professionally, who do we serve at work? It could be our team members. It could be those above us. It could be our guests or customers or clients, our business partners, or even networking, right? We're serving in a professional way. And then spiritually, whether you are religiously inclined as I am, or you're not. I think all of us believe there's some sort of spiritual connection that binds us all as human beings together. I think that love is that connection, but others might think differently, right? But I think it's okay because we all are different and we all have the 4 realms of service that we want to grow into. We think about a 4-circle Venn diagram and they all look like the circles are the same. They're never going to be the same. There's always going to be something in and out of balance, but that's where the growth comes from. Let's say you're going through a physical situation. Maybe you've had a bad diagnosis. So obviously the personal realm is going to be a little bigger. You got to take care of yourself. Or maybe you're going through something with your family or spouse. The relational part's going to take on a bigger focus, right? Or something at work, or maybe you are out of a job and you're looking for a job. So professionally is going to take on a bigger piece. Or maybe you had a crisis and now faith is a bigger part of your growth journey. So the point is that there are going to be different sizes and shapes over time, but at the epicenter is your purposeful growth and how you grow up into your purpose, which is why I prefer the word purposeful versus just purpose, because purpose is a noun, it's like a thing. Did I lose my purpose? Is it somewhere in the room? What is it? Versus purposeful is who you can grow into every single day. And all I know, Matt and Krista, is that we're all given 24 hours in every given day. Not one person is given a minute more or a minute less. So how we use the time we're given to grow up into our God-given purpose is really just like that fig tree. Every year, when that fig tree ends its life and it's cut in half and you see the rings, those represent each annual cycle of that fig tree's life. Just like each year, we celebrate a birthday. If we go back and like I do at the end of the year, I'm a pretty reflective guy, and I'll go back and say, what did I accomplish this year? What happened to me? And what did I learn from it? How did I grow this last year? And then you start stacking on each year. All of a sudden, now you've got a better vision of not only who you have been, but who you have the potential yet to be.
I think your LEAF acronym really encompasses a lot of just what every employee needs, because we've talked about this in past podcast episodes where individuals, they don't show up at work and suddenly, everything that has happened to them in their life disappears and all they can think is, what jobs they need to do that day. Everyone, they bring their whole selves to work.
Yes.
Sometimes they're not maybe on their A game and sometimes they are, but they can't just leave pieces of that at home or leave it behind them. And so having those elements, engagement, accountability, having good leaders, and then finding fulfillment in what they do, that's helping their growth in the organizational way. And then, I think you can carry this, like you said, into all the realms that you have in your life.
Well, I look at this book and I thought, man, if I ever get this finished, it's going to be my magnum opus. I'll never write another book. I'm done. Mic drop, boom, boom, boom. Until I got another idea that is actually a bit of a sequel or building, I'll say, onto the Purposeful Growth Revolution, is this whole idea to help put the human back in human resources. And to your point, Krista, and I mentioned the word love earlier, I feel like we need to bring love into the workplace. And not the kind of love that's going to get you a quick call from HR and escorted out of the building, but I mean love that's a model. Again, think of that 4-circle Venn diagram, all revolving still around purposeful growth, but now we're looking at the L of love as listen. To your point, we'd be naive to think that there aren't external forces and experiences that may be weighing on the minds, the hearts, the bodies of those who we work with, right? So I want to put managers in a position to be better leaders and leaders to grow into legacy builders. So let me just break that down real quick for you. You think about a manager. Oftentimes, those who go to business school go to schools of management. We know how to manage projects, budgets, metrics of performance, resources, timelines, people, right, to accomplish a goal. But that's very transactional. And if someone works in that environment, they might say to Matt, I will obey you because you have a title and you're the manager and I'm your employee. I don't like the word employee, by the way, Krista, I'm sorry, because I believe words matter. And I feel like if we're going to make this change and get rid of the old command and control management style that no longer serves us and replace it with a more humanistic relational leadership style that will help to ultimately break down those barriers and allow people to feel more human. What if we put more resources behind helping our people feel more human instead of feeling more like an employee, right? So by listening, we're listening empathetically with understanding and compassion of what someone's saying, but what about what they're not saying? Because all that means in the listening part of the model is about building trust, the foundation of any good relationship, right? You happen to be husband and wife. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but my guess is, you're going to want to listen to each other and build that sense of trust where you can feel safe saying things that maybe you wouldn't say to someone else. Now imagine that at work. If you're able to say, you know what, Matt, I'm dealing with a relational issue right now, and it's messing up my head a bit. I just need you to know that I'm sure I'll get through it, but right now I'm kind of in a dark space. Or, hey, I'm caring for an aging parent, and I have to spend time going over there and doing X, Y, Z. Or maybe I've got a kid who needs surgery, and I'm not sure how we're going to pay for it. Imagine if those things are on the mind of your team member. But imagine if you're listening empathetically and you're saying, look, I can't even imagine what you're going through. Is there anything I can do to help? Even if there's not, right? They know they've got you having their back. That leads to observe. You mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs, Coach Andy Reid. He doesn't wait till the end of the season to coach and provide feedback. Well, why do we do that with the dreaded annual performance appraisal that no one likes, no one does well? And the word appraisal sounds like what? We're a piece of real estate or something? What if we're observing in coaching and encouraging and even critiquing in real time. Look at Gallup's State of the Annual Workplace study each year, and they study what are the opportunities to improve engagement. And lack of engagement, most of the highest scores are on very humanistic things: feeling cared about at work, feeling like I have clarity on what I'm supposed to be doing, and feeling like I get regular and timely feedback on how I'm doing. So if we're observing and coaching in real time, they're going to feel like they're getting regular and timely feedback, right? We all need to feel seen and heard. It's one of, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you get past, food and safety and sex, right? We need to feel seen and heard. And if we're listened to and observed, we're seen and heard. And now we need to feel valued. Again, valued is that whole person that has all four realms of service, not just as a worker or an employee ID number. And if you feel valued, not only do you get recognized and rewarded when you do something good, that's great. Those are just table stakes. But if you value something, guys, don't you want to invest in it? So let's say Krista comes to me and says, hey, I'm really interested in AI. And I want to learn more about how maybe we can employ some AI techniques to help improve productivity and job satisfaction here at work. And then I say, oh, well, that's great. I'm going to invest in you. And I may send you to a conference, or I may buy you a book, or help you get to a podcast or a YouTube video, or do something that you can then do something you want. Now, going back to Gallup, some of the disengagers are lack of doing what I do best at work, lack of the ability to feel I can learn and grow at work. So now we've covered some of those things right there. So then the last one is empower. I don't know about you guys, but when I learned to ride a bike, I had training wheels on a beautiful blue Schwinn Stingray bike with a banana seat and handlebars and mag wheel in the back. And I'm tooling around. I got it for my birthday, and I'm tooling around the neighborhood, but I had, training wheels. I remember the Saturday morning, my dad woke me up and said, hey, son, it's time to take the training wheels off. And I was met with mixed emotions of incredible elation and how exciting this was going to be, and also the fear of the unknown, right? But he took me out and got them off, and he taught me how to pedal and stop and all those things while not relying on training wheels. And so then I remember he walked with me, ran with me, and then pushed me off, and I'm on my own. I fell and wobbled a couple of times, and he then coached me and told me what I needed to do different, what I was doing well. And finally, when I got the hang of it, I rode down the street, was able to stop on my own, turn around on my own, and I came back. And I don't know whose grin was bigger, myself or my dad's. But I remember in my mind's eye, as I'm telling you this right now, that feeling of freedom that I had, that I was able to do something hard, and I was able to do it on my own. And what if we could translate that same sense of empowerment, that same sense of freedom, that same sense of being able to do something hard, and yet have the resources and the support that we need from those we work with at work? So listen, observe, value, and empower. And those four ways will help managers become better leaders, because when you're a manager, it's transactional. A leader, it's relational. But if you truly want to be a legacy builder, that's transformational. So think about the leader now. You go from the manager of someone saying, I will obey you because you got the title, to I will follow you because I know you, I trust you, and I know you've got my back, to now a legacy builder is transformational. When it's my turn to lead, I will lead like you. So thinking about that as exponentially growing, like if you throw a pebble into a pond, the pebble disappears under the water. We don't see it again, but we see the ripple effect on the top of the water, right? Let's say you have 4 or 5 direct reports. Now you've got 4 or 5 ripples, and then more when they do likewise with their team members over time, right? And that to me is how we build a community. I'm not a fan of the word culture either. Again, I believe words matter. Culture is not a bad word, but I think it's often misunderstood, often overused. And I think about it as a culture may be a place someone feels merely a part of. It's not bad, but a community is a place someone feels they belong in. Notice the difference? The emphasis on the word belonging is so important, especially in this world of DEI where it's all of a sudden getting backlash and people are like, well, we're bringing people in to do these studies and these research and these, techniques and whatnot. They're missing the true point of diversity. If a firm doesn't see diversity as a competitive, leverageable advantage, they're missing the point, right? So if you think about it, diversity gets us in the door, that's good. Equity gives us an equal voice, better yet. Inclusion gets us a seat at the table, hallelujah. But if we don't feel like we belong, we're likely not going to feel psychologically safe enough to be vulnerable to give of our very best. We're just going to be happy to be in the room where it happens, right? So helping people belong, getting them to see there is total diversity of a human being. There's not just the outer diversity that we see where that it's male, female, protected classes, and race, religion, politics. All those things are important because they round us out. They tell us where we're from. They give us a sense of our lived experiences. All that's important because then it talks about our internal diversity. How do we think differently from each other, right? And how do we work together to where the best idea wins? And to me, that's the total diversity that lets each team member feel like they belong in this community. So leaders build relationships, but they also need to build them in a way that makes people belong and feel a sense of community, not just a culture where we're going to bring in a food truck once a month or we're going to celebrate the birthdays and do all. That's great, you should. But again, like recognition and reward, those are table stakes. How you interact with individuals on your team and treat them the way you'd want to be treated, actually better, that to me is where it makes all the difference.
Very powerful. And I totally agree that when individuals feel they belong, when there's a higher measure of connection and not just with the team, but with the purpose and mission of the organization as well, we can unlock this higher level of discretionary effort where people are willing to go above and beyond. And that's where we see that profit component come into the conversation where, yes, we're having this conversation about how we can foster growth for individuals in our teams and in our company. And there does need to be an element of how this is good for the business. But the whole point of our podcast, the Culture Profit, is to show that putting the people first is putting profits first. It is best for business to take a step back and remember that every organization is made up of people. We all are human. We have emotions. I have a friend he posted on LinkedIn about, a more vulnerable situation that came up where he shared his true feelings. And he basically said that he felt seen in his team and at his company to have the support to go to this program where they were talking about hard things. And that was something that helped him deepen his connection with his team, deepen his connection with the organization. And I think it's very powerful what you've shared here. One last quick thought, Mark. I love the acronym LOVE for one reason.
We love it.
Yeah, we love it. To me, it feels like the values, the behavioral guideposts that help you make sure you're guiding your behaviors, your actions in the right direction towards that outcome of growth. And that growth can happen in those 4 areas that you talked about, from personal, professional, spiritual, and relational. Maybe a company doesn't have as big of a stake in all of those equally, but they all matter to the person. And as the person grows, there is a benefit to the company. And ultimately, I think the higher purpose of organizations is to positively affect societies. And we can do that within our own organizations to start. And there's a ripple, just like you talked about. There's a ripple that happens within our teams and outside of the company to the families and friends, customers that are all impacted in one way or another by how good a company is.
Well, I think you're right, Matt. To me, there are 4 key stakeholder groups: team members first, guests or customers, depending on your clients, depending on your industry, business partners, anybody in your business ecosystem, and your communities. And so they're, again, intertwined, all revolving around purposeful growth. And why I say purposeful growth, because I love the name of your podcast, right? Because it's not a or situation, it's an and situation. It's purpose and profit. Purpose leads to profit. You think about Deloitte just released a study this summer. It talked about nearly 90% of millennials and Gen Z want purpose at work. Not just in their life, at work. And again, one of the Gallup studies suggests that one of the disengagement is, to your point, people feeling there's a lack of connection to purpose in their work, right? So they're basically saying, look, we don't want to just punch in and out a clock and get paid every other week. We want to feel like what we do matters, and not just to ourselves, but to others. We want to feel like we're doing something that allows us to be bigger than we could be on our own. And that's the organization I choose to work for, or not. According to Gallup, they're saying nearly $9 trillion globally is lost through lack of engagement in terms of GDP. Oh my gosh, if that's not a wake-up call for business leaders to say, hey, wait a minute. I know as a former CEO and president with full P&L responsibility, the number one line item is either labor for most businesses or cost of goods, okay? But if you have those as headwinds, sometimes with inflation, cost of goods goes up, right? What do we have to do? We have to toggle in other areas to drive top line sales. But if you can't, then all of a sudden now your margins go down. And now you're looking at having to lay people off because the labor line has gone too high. That's a losing strategy for everybody, right? So it makes dollars and cents to find and fulfill your purpose individually, collectively as a team, and corporately as an organization at work.
You have so many great analogies and metaphors that the imagery, you can really understand what you're trying to say. And I think I'll continue with that, the ripple effect that we can have in organizations in our communities, and what kinds of ripples are we wanting to create, and how big. And the more that we do, and the more that we keep these principles in mind of listening and observing, valuing, empowering, I think all of those, that can create those bigger ripple effects and more positive ripple effects. And I just want to thank you for being on our podcast today, and for everything that you shared with our listeners. And for those listening, if you loved this podcast, please leave us a review and some comments, and we will leave it at that.
Nice. I love it. My daughters call me a walking dad joke, and I think you guys, you're on your way. You're on your way to greatness there. If you want to keep this conversation going, hit me up on LinkedIn and follow me and connect with me. I want to learn from you. Also, I have a monthly LinkedIn newsletter. If you are inclined to subscribe, that would be great. And another thing would be great if you go to my website, which is Mark A. Mears, MEARS. Don't forget the A. And there on the homepage, you can take a purposeful growth self-assessment that takes about 5 or 6 minutes. And it'll kind of give you a benchmark of where are you on this whole, concept of purposeful growth in life and work. And then I'll send you a customized PDF with your scores and some helpful tips along each 4 divisions of the book. And then hopefully you'll be interested to want to buy the book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution, 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. And it's available whether you like Kindle, ebooks, or paperback or hardcover even, and also audiobook for those of you who are not, awesome readers. You want to hear it, then you'll hear it right here from the horse's mouth. And I would love to continue this journey with your listeners.
And we'll make sure to put links to all of those helpful resources in the highlight article so you can easily find all of those.
Definitely.
So thanks again, Mark, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Culture Profit Podcast and for being a part of our journey to prove that putting people first is best for business.
Today's episode was sponsored by Mobrium.
Want to get more employee reviews and streamline your employer reputation? Visit mobrium.com.
Now go find one way to prioritize your people and watch your profits grow.